Welcome everyone to Cape Breton Movers and Shakers, where we talk with people who are doing interesting things here in Cape Breton. I'm Richard Lorway, president of goCapeBreton.com. And with me today is Duane Nardocchio, operations manager for Cape Breton Music Industry Cooperative, aka CBMIC, as it's more popularly known. And Nigel Kearns, who is chair of the board of CBMIC. How's it going, guys?
Great, magical.
Magical in this time of COVID. Well, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Tell me just, give me some, first of all, some background on CBMIC. What is it? What does it do? Those kinds of things.
Well, CBMIC was created 13.
Going into 14.
We're getting into our 14th year. It is basically, although the name is a little larger, its actual function, we are the music association for Cape Breton Island.
Right.
Where there's Music PEI, Music New Brunswick, Music Nova Scotia. We're CBMIC, and on par with with the ECMAs in the 80s, where the content, the amounts justified Cape Breton get its own region. CBMIC was born similarly to that need, not as a competitive existence with our partners at Music Nova Scotia, but as an augmentation to be more focused on the specific needs that our communities and musical communities required. Basically, what we are.
So what kind of programs? And what you're an association is kind of a generic. People have an idea of what it is you do. So what kinds of programs do you offer to your clients?
Well,
what don't you offer? Maybe that's a shorter list.
No, absolutely. So in terms of funded programs, so programs that we would apply through various government agencies for support. Over the years, we've been able to do a lot of educational workshop programs that are an important part of our local industry. And we work with every level of artists when it comes to that. So everything from the emerging to the very developed artists. We have been, through our past chair, the introduction of the Presenters and Media program, which is the only buyers program, talent buyers program that's offered here on the island. And that's in affiliation with the Celtic Colours International Festival.
Right.
And so we've been involved with that for 6 years now. And that program basically provides us with an opportunity to showcase Cape Breton artists to a lot of these regional, national, and international talent buyers from various festivals and theaters from around the world. And so when they're here, we bring them to the Celtic Colours International Festival, of course, to see the festival and see the island. But as part of the program, they're involved with a CBMIC showcase that would focus solely on the Cape Breton performers. And through that, business relationships are developed and bookings are made for, the coming year or the coming 2 years in advance. And that program is a very strong program and has, given back exponentially to the Cape Breton artists. Probably, getting close to the $500,000 range in bookings now.
Yeah, I think the highest yield for return on investment was that one particular few years ago. It was $240,000 in confirmed contracts from that one mission with the artists that were done. But those contracts went on over, a year or two period. But because of that gathering of the buyers in real life on location, that was that. Not all of them have been that successful, but none of them have not returned a positive, strong ROI, for taxpayer investment to artist booking. So it's been very successful that way.
So Nigel, I know that. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
Nigel, I know you've always been passionate about, I guess we'll call it in broad terms, industrial development.
Yeah.
And essentially the basic premise being we certainly punch above our weight when it comes to the raw material, the raw talent.
Absolutely.
And yet a lot of the the industrial development or the business development seems to be happen elsewhere for whatever reason. I know that's that's something you care deeply about. Could you care to talk about that a bit?
That's a challenging one. I mean, you know, although the talent is clearly and obviously there, and it's there from young people right away to like. There's no question the amount of content and creative, talented musicians that are ready to take on the world. But you know, we don't have the islands market itself is not specifically strong enough. The economy's not specifically strong enough. So having some of the business, you know, artist management, A&R, those kind of businesses that are not really here. They're more centralized in the Halifax area or, you know, Toronto's and so on and so on.
Exactly.
A great deal of our artists do participate and have those services hired, you know, our main artists. But it's a difficult business to get in. You know, it would be great if we had that kind of capability and representation here. But as you're well aware, you know, that outreach and effort, it's relationship stuff. It's relationship building businesses. So it's, you know, it's the epitome of a who you know. And if you're here, you're not in Toronto or downtown Halifax. So the who you knows are not the same as having a coffee together and talking about a particular artist. So there's challenges. But you know, with what we do, and specifically Duane here, and just out of sight, Elise. Say hi, Elise. There she is. Elise, our office administrator. So they've been kicking butt and keeping people in touch with who they need to know or assist in any way. But as that management industry here, it's a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
I hope that answers that.
And I guess the venues aren't as many and aren't as big either, so that's all.
No, and we're very lucky to have some key corporate venues and the large venues that we have, and the community events that we have. But you know, we've got some great theaters. You know, we've got Center 200, we've got the Marine Terminal, we got Port Hawkesbury, NDA up in Shetty Camp, and Inverness, the Arts Culture Center there. Fantastic. But you know, what degree of concentration do we need? You know, population would be a plus.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit more activity. You know, but every sector is working on that solution.
Yeah.
Including ours.
Yeah, the same 2,000 people can't go to a live venue every night of the week.
True that. Though we try.
So, and speaking of which, I mean, maybe that's a one way to transition to this, but you know, obviously the entertainment and tourism industries have been just massively hit by the pandemic. And so how are local musicians and how are you guys responding or managing, I should say is a better word maybe.
Well, on day one, you know, of that lockdown, like the first experience, we were pretty gobsmacked, as everyone was, but it was a complete new territory. Like everything was cut off and gone, like gone. So, you know, how do you get your head around that? And, you know, immediately we started chatting about online. Like that's the obvious choice. We can't disappear. And geez, Duane and I, for the first 2 months, we were day and night fielding calls, messages, every single medium that someone could get in contact with. It was bing, 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 bing. And we coached and taught and provided whatever we could to get people to, you know, they weren't used to broadcasting their own material. And a great deal didn't even know how to go live from a phone or what interfaces they needed. So we went through that process. And then we had some other supporters join to perpetuate and share and make sure everybody got those streams in their face. And we created our quarantine page, performance page, which is still active. And that worked really well. And then all of a sudden, those calls and needs for help just went silent. So there isn't anybody um, emerging, getting into it, or professional touring that is not capable of broadcasting on their own now. So that has been a really cool benefit of the pandemic. And that was what the first couple months were until, we got opened up again and we could start doing acts in the bars and pubs. And so since then, our small shows have been great. And one of the cool things I enjoyed, and it was very ironic, through that freedom we had prior to our recent lockdown, or third wave or whatever wave it was, the fact was that the Cape Breton music industry was the strongest music industry in the country through that whole time.
Really?
We had friends and colleagues and from all over the country really annoyed in the most friendly, envious way that we had 5 or 6 shows going on in one night, and it was difficult to hop around and see what we could do. So in one sense, we were the strongest music industry in the country.
Wow.
Go
So
figure.
credit to you guys, then kudos to you. And so, Duane, do you see things, clearly Nova Scotia, we're starting to reopen again, and we're starting to see live venues start to book acts again. How quickly do you think this will turn around?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, obviously we're seeing some advancement. I mean, if we go back just a tiny bit to what Nigel was saying, while that activity was happening, one of the other behind the scenes things that was a real priority for us was to stay engaged with, with our elected officials and our government entities, to kind of keep up to date and to advocate for the industry and the cultural sector. And so one of the things that we did, and I was involved with from that point pretty much right up till now. I'm still on calls on a regular basis, but we kind of developed a local cultural community group, that would involve people from the musical sector, the arts and crafts sector, the theater sector, and really kind of collaborated in a way that we never had before, all in the interest of advocacy to the cultural sector in general. And then that kind of branched from the local group to a provincially wide group, of a reopening collective that would involve basically this similar scope of people, but across the province. So there's a number of theater groups on there now. We're on there with Music Nova Scotia, lots of venues, performance venues, that have really suffered during this time. And so when you ask how quickly does it open, well, although, like you say, there's been elements that we felt very lucky to have where we were able to continue and have some small venue performances. The theaters and the performance venues have really suffered in that regard, and they haven't really, they're just starting to touch on some level of, reopening now. So, it's felt painfully slow for many people, and it's still feeling slow. And these phases that we're going through now, each one that we get to, everybody's looking forward to some new level of ability, right? The ability to have more people in an audience, indoors or outdoors, with less distancing restrictions and stuff, makes a call for different types of performances and things that they can do. There's been tough restrictions surrounding performance rehearsals and stuff, so people haven't even been able to really to do that kind of thing. So, while in the music side, we've been fortunate enough to have like solos and duos be able to play at bars and restaurants, or at least, in the most recent lockdown, once that relieved, we've been able to get back outside, and now that's moved inside. So every little step helps a great deal. I think, there's a lot of hope being, leveraged into phase 5, when we can hopefully see some much reduced restrictions. But again, that's all up in the air. Like, it's every month that goes by, it depends on what's happening. And so when you start hearing talks about, Delta variants and a possible 4th wave in the fall, those things really start making you perk up and say, are we ever getting out of this? kind of thing. But there's a lot of hope in the cultural sector now. There's been a lot of frustration too. So the pressure is being put everywhere to make sure that everything is being looked at, that organizations are being considered for operational support, so they can provide, these cultural experiences. And then of course, individual support for the gig community, people who have been able to, get some work, but maybe it's not anywhere near to the level that they're used to. And there's a lot of danger around that if the professional people that are part of the cultural sector, if they have to move on to other things, that they may not be there when we do recover, and then that sets another level of recovery that has to happen. So it's moving, but it's not moving fast enough. But right now, there's not a great deal we can do about it. We're at the mercy of the health authorities and the professionals. So the planning continues. We're always thinking forward. Obviously advocating for more performances and to we spent many years advocating for live music and live performances and experiencing that kind of stuff. And we really had our feet knocked from under us with that. And so we go back to that now, hoping that the community will come back out and support the sector, in the level that we're able to do, but understanding that, it's greatly needed to get people back out to see shows and experience whatever's being offered, in order for a real recovery to happen. The funding support and the emergency relief programs and stuff is great, but I mean, to sustain the industry in general, we're going to need the support of the people again to do it the way it was at one time.
Gotcha.
I'd like to backtrack on what Duane started with a little earlier in that answer. Fine answer, by the way. It was the outreach and creating those committees and really advocating with like-minded colleagues and that activity that Duane was involved in. One thing that we as an organization are particularly proud of is at the national level, and to the credit of board member John Ellenbow and Duane, from the get-go, we were involved nationally with organizations, live music, live events, talking with federal ministers, and that effort is not backed off or stopped. So it was crucial. One of the things in every level of government, the one thing this pandemic and all the troubles caused by the efforts of Duane and his colleagues around the country, it's amazing how much we brought the specifics of the importance of culture and music, although we're aware of it and it's discussed and supported. It wasn't really understood the real impact and the needs and what is needed by organizations and the industry. I never really got a sense of acknowledgement in a real clear way from the feds and other partners like before this. Right. And the language seems to change. So as Duane said, that's changed, and now they're working forward and things are they're on the table of discussion and where things could possibly really be changed. So that would be another benefit. But going back to what I interjected with, the activity that John Ellenbow and Duane did on our behalf, content and suggestions that are in play and in documentations are Cape Breton IP suggestions and input. And from that, CBMIC is not only stronger in Atlantic Canada, it's in the know nationally as a strong, serious, respected music association. And, our input has been sought out and taken heed to, which is, so as an organization, that's a pretty big, proud thing. So kudos to embarrassing him next to me right now. And to John, if he's out there watching, it was a great job.
Absolutely.
Super. That's amazing. So here's one question. It's kind of a what if question or crystal ball, not even that, but so apart from obviously, support, funding, whatever, if you had a wish list, if you could pick one thing to change or one piece you needed, one piece of the puzzle to help get to the next level phase.
Operational funding.
Well, apart from that.
Operational funding.
Well, I think what Nigel's saying is, so when it comes to operational funding, particularly for nonprofits, it's always been it's been a long-standing challenge.
Oh yeah,
Because
I'm familiar
most
with that.
organizations, yeah,
Yeah.
and you would be, right?
Who's
So,
not?
so these little stints of like 6 months or a year of programming with tight parameters and deliverables has made it really difficult for a lot of organizations to to actually be able to complete a lot of projects. And for many years, CBMIC's operated with one staff member, and it's only this past year that we've been able to notch up to a second through some programs for there. But one of the things that we, in our advocacy, and many other organizations are looking for more longer term operational support with less restrictions on it, so that you have a little bit of, you need momentum to get your things going. And when you
So not project based, for example.
no, so if you get a nice project and you're gonna base it around $100,000 for whatever, recording albums and that kind of stuff, but without the suitable staffing to do that, and reasonable parameters to make things happen, it's very difficult. And then if you're worried about, okay, well, we're going to run out of operational money those 6 months into this year program, then you start to panic a little bit, and you say, okay, well, how are we going to complete not just that one program, but the other three that we're working on? When right now we're concerned about, well, can we pay our staff? Can we pay our rent? Can we, operate basically? So that is a key one, and we jokingly say it a lot, but we're used to doing that right now because that is a big piece for a lot of organizations.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
part of the problem is many of them are reaching out to organizations like Canadian Heritage, and Canada Council for the Arts, and a lot of organizations here aren't eligible for the funding that. So when you hear these big programs, there's $300 million available, through Heritage Canada, for the arts and cultural sector. But then we come to find out that we're not eligible for a dollar of it because we don't fit certain criteria, or we had never been a past applicant or anything like that. So the government obviously has had struggles, finding ways to deliver this money, and they're always changing it. So, things like I heard today that there's a new portal being designed to help filter some of that money to some other organizations that haven't been able to get to it. But the problem is, like, you spend 3 months trying to figure out how to get something, and it, you struggle, and you stress yourself out trying to figure that out while you could be working on other things and being more effective to your industry at large, right? So that is a priority for us. In terms of what other things there are, obviously more suitable programs for staffing that are easier to access and are longer term. Because you find a lot of the programs that are available for hiring staffing, they usually have some.
That's what that button's for.
They usually have some.
COVID count, did we?
Yeah, those programs usually have some sort of short-term piece on them, and by the time you get someone brought up to speed to do a job, the program is over. And then, so you can spend time just training and doing that, and then that person is no longer able to stay with the organization, unless, of course, you have ample operational money to say, okay, we're going to continue on with this position. And that becomes unfortunate too, right? But there's lots of things. One of the things we want to see now is a lot of the words that are being used are innovation and that kind of stuff when it comes to programs. But we want to see that kind of also come back from the funders too. We want to have a broader, open sense. So, because we have a number of projects that we have been working on for the last couple of years, and we know they're important. We know they're going to be a significant piece of the music industry, but it's just hard sometimes to get them across in the right frame. But it's always because a lot of the things are being looked through these old lenses, and we're trying to fit, it's like anything that needs to change after a certain period of time, right? It's like bylaws or anything else. So that things change in life, and sometimes you need to readjust how you're going to deliver stuff. And we'd like to see an equal amount of interest and creativity coming back towards us when we're moving forward with it,
And more flexibility, more judgment employee. Yeah. Okay.
And as I tried to mention before, this whole pandemic fiasco has created that opportunity to listen. So there is, through the efforts of Duane and other board members and other organizations, that the language has changed and a new view has been exposed on what's really needed. So, it does take time, but I think we all sit quite confidently that, change is coming, that should be beneficial. The respect of our existence is there. Our efforts have yielded positively in everything we've touched, and we've done incredible impact to our community economically and industry development wise with how little we've had. It's been challenging, but as you mentioned earlier, we all swing pretty above our weight.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. All righty. Was there anything else you guys want to add?
We did kind of go off on a tangent. I know that's probably my fault.
No, really?
It's known to happen. Squirrel. When Duane was talking about other programs, we got through their educational aspects and so on, which have been hugely successful. We have some really great topics. We're constantly developing them. I'm staring at some on the wall there that we've got coming up. Those will never, ever stop. It's constant development, empowerment, awareness. One really great project that is 6 years product development.
No, this was only year 3, believe it or not.
What? Product development 3? The other day, 3 years ago. So product development is where through funding partners, we would issue out partial funding, like 50-cent dollars or whatever we possibly could at that time, to recording projects, a variety of different criterias. Submissions come in, and we have jurors off island, our colleagues elsewhere throughout Atlantic Canada and the country that volunteer as jurors for us to make the selections. And in the very first time, we had to put 2 or 3 calls out for people to submit. And, we get 4 or 5 submissions because it's new and what's this all about? And then it blew up. And we funded this year 21, is it?
23.
23. We funded 23 recording projects this year.
Wow.
So, and through this process, you would, in your mind, you have a list already of who those people possibly are. They're the same old names, so on and so on.
They're known, yeah.
But what it created this whole thrust of creating content, and we've got really great projects from all kinds of emerging artists, even artists that are more traditional. I hate the word, but I have no choice but to use it. The bar scene, which, in our minds, there's no difference between who is entertaining and what their content of entertainment is. Entertainment is entertainment. But they're coming up, and writing is taking place. It's blowing up, and there's some fabulous projects coming forward. And our peers in the industry have selected and approved. And, Shauna Walters administers that program for us, and it's been hugely successful. And to see our brand on the back of 23 albums, that's pretty cool.
And in total, over the 3 years, we're up to 43 albums.
Yeah, we've contributed to 43 albums.
Wow. Thanks, guys. Nigel and Duane, thanks for being with me today and sharing CBMIC's story with our viewers. That was Nigel Kearns and Duane Nardocchio, respectively Chair and Operations Manager at CBMIC. See you next time on Cape Breton Movers and Shakers.